SGNP is brought to you by Toccoa Falls College in Toccoa Falls, Georgia. For more information on TFC, call 706-886-7299 or visit them online at tfc.edu. That's tfc.edu. Since 1907, TFC, glorifying God through seeking and developing leaders who will impact the world for Jesus Christ.
Welcome to one of the most listened to music news podcasts in the world, SGNP, with your host, Darien Southerland. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, artists, and entertainers about their faith, family, and careers. This is information you will not find anywhere else on radio, web, or in a magazine, but only firsthand on SGNP.
But up in the mountains of Kentucky, we sang in a church unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. When we pulled up in the yard, I told the children here, I said, we're going to have ourselves a time tonight. After we sung about 3 songs, they came out around us with 5 of the biggest rattlesnakes I have ever laid my eyes on. I like to die.
And welcome back to SGNP. Darien Southerland and my co-host today from up there in Sevierville, Tennessee, Mr. Arthur Rice. Arthur, how you doing, my friend?
Doing great.
Arthur, I made a post on our Facebook page earlier this week on Friday, and I made a post, and you've already saw it, I'm sure. It's a black and white picture of a man holding a rattlesnake up. And I said, what does laughter, a rattlesnake, and gospel music have in common? And you ought to have seen some of the remarks that people were giving on that thing. And finally somebody came up and they said, you're talking about Wendy Bagwell, who I view as America's first true Christian comedian. Wouldn't you agree?
I would have to agree with that. Yes, I would.
So, I mean, we've got a great number of them now. Aaron Wilburn, Tim Lovelace, a lot of great guys out there. But, Arthur, you were around Wendy in concert when you were with the Kingsmen. What do you remember most about Wendy?
So many fond memories of working with Wendy and Jan and Jerry and all the band members. It was just a lot of fun.
Arthur, do you think perhaps, in a sense, maybe we've lost some of that showmanship that Wendy brought to Christian music? I mean, because let's face it, Wendy taught Sunday school. Folks don't know that. Wendy paid for the church that he was a member of to be built. A lot of folks don't know that. Wendy loved people, but Wendy also could read a crowd and was a great showman and knew what story to tell. Arthur, let's face it, he never won Best Lead Singer of the Year, Best Male Vocalist, or anything like that. But yet Wendy could connect with a crowd. Have we lost some of that today?
I think there is some of that missing. I think we haven't figured out that, that stuff's okay, because a lot of times, a lot of our groups, as they grow, they kind of forget, where they came from.
Yeah.
And maybe kind of want to, they feel maybe sometimes like, well, that was in the past, that was before. But that's part of what makes you who you are. And you have to remember that. And if you can take those bits and pieces and kind of, use those to reach those people, because you're singing to the same people. It's just a different venue. It's just a different avenue. And Wendy just did an amazing job of that and all those great stories.
Wendy, born May 16th, 1925 in Chamblee, Georgia. Went to West Fulton High School in West Atlanta. If he had lived until now, Arthur, he would have been 93 years old last week and had passed away June 13th, 1996. It's funny, as we do this dialogue today, and we're going to have a lot of good people making comments on Wendy, went to New York City in a bread truck to sing at Carnegie Hall. Let's listen to what took Wendy to Carnegie Hall. Here's the rattlesnake story on SGNP.
But up in the mountains of Kentucky, we sang in a church unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. This church had been writing us to come there and sing, and our agents had told us, when you get in 100 miles of there, go and sing. And we did. We pulled up in front of this church, and it was an old church. It was over 100 years old. It had never even been painted. It had 3 drop lights inside. We had to run drop cords a half a mile to get to our amps to plug up. When we pulled up in the yard, I told the children here, I said, we're going to have ourselves a time tonight. I just knew that old church is going to be full of spirit, and it was, honey. It was. We went in there. After we sung about 3 songs, they were shouting all over that church. I've never seen so many people in one church shout. And in a little while, they shouted themselves right around in back of us. 3 ladies and 2 men. Well, now, when we were hooking up, we saw some curtains or something laying over some boxes back there. We didn't pay any attention to it. Didn't know what was in there and didn't care. But in a little while, they came out around us with 5 of the biggest rattlesnakes I have ever laid my eyes on. I like to die. When the service was over, they told us that the biggest rattlesnake they had in that service was 5 feet long. Honey, the one they brought by me was 27 feet long. Let me say this. I'm not knocking these people. I promise you I'm not knocking them. I don't know if they're right or wrong, you know. I'll tell you, they claim that they read in the Bible where Moses had enough faith to take up the serpent. And some members of their congregation claim to have that much faith. And I'll tell you one thing I found out before I left there. They had a whole lot more faith than what I had. Now, this one woman stopped about 2 feet from where I was trying to pick and sing. I didn't even know what key I was in. She took that rattlesnake with a head as big as your fist and held it up and stuck it right down in her face and shouted in its ear, if a rattlesnake's got an ear. She wrapped that thing around her neck. She threw it down on the floor, kicked off her shoe, and put her bare foot on top of its head. When she throwed that thing down on the floor, its tail missed my foot about that far. I'd done a little shouting myself. And she thought I was in the spirit and brought me one up. But I saw right away that we had a house full of people and we didn't have but 5 rattlesnakes. And I want you folks to know one thing, there ain't a greedy bone in my body. I told them to give mine to Geraldine. You know, now I'm scared of rattlesnakes. These girls are scared of potato bugs. It hadn't even dawned on me that they was in the world. And all at once, I remembered them. And we had already backed up as far as we could back. And I looked around at Jerry, and she was the color of cotton. And I knew she was about 17 seconds from hitting the floor. She looked over there at me and said, what in the world are we going to do? And I said, just take it easy. Don't panic. I said, just look around and find out where the back door is. She said, I already looked and there ain't none. I said, reckon where do they want one? As I went out the door, I told them where they could send my guitars an ounce. Now, if you ever get a chance to go to a church where they take up the serpent, I want you to go. Sit on the back row, but go. I stood around and I mixed and mingled with these people after service was over. I just couldn't leave. Man, I wanted to talk to these people. I wanted to hear more about it. I was interested in anybody got that kind of faith or whatever it is it takes to pick one of them up. And I was talking to the preacher back in the back of the church, and I was telling him, I said, well, I ain't no way I can knock you. He said, I hope you don't disapprove. And I said, ain't no way I can knock you, man. I said, ain't no way I could pick that thing up. I've seen them now, and I couldn't touch one of them. And this lady walked up to me. She said, Brother Wendy, you mean to tell me if the Lord commanded you to take up the serpent, you wouldn't take him up? I said, yes, ma'am, I surely would. But he didn't, and I ain't.
I started with Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters when I was quite young. Actually, they came to my church when I was a little girl, Pleasant Grove, Baptist church. It was Wendy and his wife, Melba, and his girls. Of course, Wendy had an adopted son, Ron Buckner. I had eyes for him, even though I was awfully young. We started dating. Wendy was the first person in Georgia that was single and had an adopted son. That's a whole story in itself. But Ronnie and I dated, and then we didn't date long, and we were married. Wendy was he was the father that I never had. I was orphaned when I was a little girl. My mother was killed by a drunk driver, so he was not only a father-in-law, he was a father road to me. I remember one time when I was little, he patted me on the head as he walked out the church, and he said, "You keep singing really good, because I'm going to need somebody young. These girls I got with me now, they're old." And that was when it was Wendy and Geraldine and Georgia Jones. And all I wanted to do when I was little was sing. When we went to Carnegie Hall, they heard us on our, of course, records, and they thought we were folk singers, and they wanted us to be a part of the Carnegie Hall. It was pop music, rock music, country music, gospel music, and they thought we were folk gospel. They wanted us to represent that. Brooke Benton was there, Ray Charles was there. It was a big deal when we sang in Carnegie Hall. And we were the very first ones that ever sang in Carnegie Hall in our realm of music. And we felt like we were very, very blessed. And, we went to Carnegie Hall, and, the people that know about this still talk about it. We went to Carnegie Hall in our little bread truck. It was an absolute bread truck, but we had guitars on the front, on the sides, and everybody, even in New York, they just rallied around because they wanted to know what that was coming down the street. But we were just proud as punch to be in New York City in Carnegie Hall when we went over there in our little truck.
Great comments from Jan Buckner. Golf. I've got to say Jan Buckner Golf, because she's married to Dr. Jerry Golf now, on Wendy. Arthur, give me some of your memories of Geraldine and Jan, the Sunlighters. We can't let them alone. I know this show's a tribute to Wendy, but without the Sunlighters, Wendy would have just been a stand-up comedian who could have sang a little bit.
I'm telling you, Jan was the ultimate professional. She was just first class all the way, and she wanted it right, and it was right. I mean, she did a great job, and Geraldine was always funny to be with, but the three of them together, they just clicked, and it was just a great, and man, just the band members that they had through the years, some of the greatest musicians that are in Nashville have played for those guys, and even Bill Gaither's right-hand man now, Kevin Williams, played with them for a while, and Kevin he is Bill Gaither's right-hand funny man,
No doubt.
He'd had to glean some of that, from Wendy, but Jan, I love Jan, and I've always loved Jan. She's just always been such a first-class lady.
When we talk about Wendy, the thing that a lot of people miss, and I think the thing that a lot of groups miss, and I think a lot of Christian artists miss, and I don't care if you're Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, Bill Gaither, whoever, but Wendy basically may have been the father of advertising when it came to Christian media and Christian groups. And people say, what do you mean? The Statesmen were on radio and sponsored by Rich's Piano Tuning or White Lily Flower on the Grand Ole Opry. But Wendy actually went out and was doing commercials for, everybody knows about Stand Back, but Guy Mobile Home Park. I mean, Wendy was a businessman. He knew how to get things done, and he didn't just record one Stand Back commercial, Arthur. He did a lot of them. And I remember when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, seen him on TV and that commercial, and you're right. I think he really did set the stage for that, and all the artists coming on after that to kind of to get some sponsorships. When I was with the Kingsmen, Jim Walter Holmes did some stuff, for us. They sponsored us on some things, and even today with Dollywood, when we do the Harvest celebration in October, the whole month of October, Southern Gospel Music Month, is sponsored by Humana.
Yeah,
I mean he set the stage for that to be able to happen now.
Joe Buckelman, he was the man at Stand Back, and we went to Charlotte, North Carolina, to this big, beautiful Southern Belle home, and did the commercials right there. It was just he had heard Wendy Bagwell and Darlene and Little Jan singing, and of course doing concerts, and he felt like that we would be good for his Stand Back commercials.
Hey, let's listen to that Stand Back commercial. Then we're going to hear from a dear lady who's traveled with Wendy every day. But before we hear that right after that Stand Back commercial, we need to tell you something. If it wasn't for the fine folks at Kia, we wouldn't be able to do this show. And coming up June the 14th, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, we're doing our first Kia Gospel Music Nights with the McCameys. Big event coming up in July in Woodstock, Georgia. They're working on these events slowly but surely, and we want you to attend. But let's hear that Stand Back commercial. Let's hear a little message from Kia. We'll come back with Miss Betty. We'll talk a little bit more right here on SGNP.
When me and the girls were younger and foolisher, we played New York City as Carnegie Hall. We got up there, we couldn't even find that place. When we asked where it was, they couldn't tell us because they couldn't speak good English. Couldn't understand them. Finally run into an old boy from off Alabama. Understood everything he said. But he was lost too. Gave me a skyscraping headache that only a Stand Back could handle. And that's a fact with my hand up. Snap back with Stand Back.
SGNP is brought to you by Kia. Join SGNP this summer for the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, a free concert at select local Kia dealers. The first concert is June 14th with the McCameys at Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
The God on the mountain is still God in the valley.
It's the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, starting June 14th with the McCameys at Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa. Part of Kia, America's best value summer event. America loves Kia and gospel music. It's the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, absolutely free. Brought to you by SGNP and Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, June 14th.
And welcome back to SGMP. Man, great information, great insight. A lot of people don't realize, Arthur, there's people that travel with groups on a daily basis, that the groups know who the persons are, but the fans don't know who the people are. I'm sure you've been friends with people who have traveled with various groups that nobody even knows who they are, but Arthur Rice knows them because you see them, and they're basically part of the group. They're just not on stage.
Oh, absolutely. They're the unsung heroes. They really are. And, they do a lot of the background stuff that nobody ever knows, but if it wasn't there and if it wasn't taken care of, you would notice it then, And Betty did a great job. She's always just a hoot to be around. She's funny, and she's hilarious.
So let's have some fun this afternoon and talk about Wendy and the Sunlighters and talk about how did you get hooked up with them, Miss Betty?
Going to church with them. I used to listen to them. They used to come on WTJH and WEAS. Me and Bobby, my husband, we would take our vacation around wherever they was going to be at. So, I got to where I'd go, and then, and I really don't know the time that I really started full-time with them.
Now, what all did you do for him? I know you ran the record table, but what else did you do for him?
Anything else that needed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I kept us stocked with snacks and drinks on the bus, and I kind of kept up with each town we went into, what story Wendy had told, and what the girls had wore. So when we go back to that town, Wendy wouldn't tell the same story, and Jerry and Jen wouldn't wear the same clothes. But 9 times out of 10, Wendy wound up telling the rattlesnakes again.
What's the funniest thing you remember right off? If somebody brings Wendy's name up to you, what's the first thing that comes to your mind as far as being funny?
It was a story that Wendy could never told on the radio about Jerry eating Fenway. She thought they were chiclets.
And what happened?
And, Jerry got on the bus, and there was a package of something on the table, and she thought they were chiclets, but they were Fenway. She got about 4 or 5 of them, went back out to her room, and this is when I-20 had just opened up, and they wasn't nothing down to there. Ricky Lewis was driving. About just over in the Alabama line, she came up to the front of the bus hollering, "You got to find a bathroom. You got to find a bathroom." And Ricky says, "Jerry," says, "there ain't nothing down through here." Says, "You might find a tree." She says, and she was just plumb frantic. I mean, her eyes was wide open. I mean, she was just frantic. You got to find a bathroom. You got to find a bathroom. I got to go to the bathroom. Well, we didn't stop, so she went back to her room, and a little bit, she said, told me, she called me back there, and she said, "Tell Ricky he ain't got to find a bathroom." So I finally did get myself up off the floor and went to the door of the front, and Ricky looked up at me, and he said, "I know, Betty Sue, we ain't got to find no trash can, we got to find a dumpster." That was probably I liked that time more than I have ever liked in my whole life. And all of us, we was just dying life. And like I said, me and Jan, I mean, we were laying in the floor. We couldn't even get up off the floor laughing so much. And that was the funniest thing that ever happened on that bus. We was out in Little Rock, Arkansas one year, and we was parked at a truck stop. I was sitting up front on the bus. And this guy came to the door, had long hair and a long beard, looked like a homeless guy. And I got up, went to the door, and he says, "Is Wendy on the bus?" I said, "Well, he's asleep." Well, it was Bill Golden. And he said, "Well, I'd kind of like to see him, but don't tell him it's me." I said, "Okay." I said, "Come on." I said, he got on the bus, and he sat down, and I went back there, and I told Wendy, I said, "Wendy," I said, "there's some old guy up here." I said, "He's got long hair," and I said, "He's got a long beard," and I said, "Looks like he's homeless," and I said, "He's wanting to talk to you." Wendy said, "Well, Susie said, see if you just can't get rid of him." He said, "I'm trying to rest." I said, "I know it," but I said, he won't go away. I said, "He done told me he wasn't leaving till you come out and talk to him." So I said, to get any rest, anybody on this bus, I said, he's going to be banging on the bus. You ain't going to get no rest anyway. Wendy said, "All right, give me a minute." So Wendy come up there, and he liked to have had a duck whenever he seen it was Bill Golden. He said, "Man, I ain't never," and they sat there and they talked forever. That's when Kevin Williams was with us. And Wendy told Bill, said, "Go back there, and that bottom bunk," said, "my driver and guitar picker, Kevin Williams, said, he just thinks there ain't nobody like you." He said, "He's asleep. Go back there and wake him up." So old Golden goes back there, and he kneels down beside the bunk. He punched Kevin, pushed him over, and he said, "Hey, boy, get up and start driving this bus." And Kevin said at first he thought somebody had done kidnapped all of us on that bus till he realized that it was Bill Golden. But Wendy loved the Oak Ridge. You know, even whenever they went country, he was still 100% loving the Oak Ridge.
Yeah. Tell us something about Wendy that nobody knows, Miss Betty. That something maybe he's meant to you or something something special about Wendy. That if, Wendy would have been 90-something years old now, I think, if his birthday, born in 25, so this is 2018. So, yeah, he'd been 93 years old. But tell us something about Wendy that people need to know that never got to meet him.
Well, he's the one that whenever we first bought Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, he's the one that paid for the church. A lot of people don't know that. The old Pleasant Grove Church there in Clarkdale, Wendy is the one that paid for that church, and then the church paid him back. But Wendy's the one that wrote the check to buy that church up there.
Let's talk to one of his musicians that traveled on and off with him for years. Wendy nicknamed him Cotton Top, and you'll hear his story right here next on SGNP.
I wonder how many of you has got one of those little CB radios. Old Charlie just kept on talking about we just had to have one. After you own one of them for a couple of weeks, you learn a whole new language. They use handles. They don't use their right name. And so if they get caught and the police do happen to hear them, they won't be in no trouble. You know what Charlie uses? Cotton Top. Well, we're cruising on up the road there. He's talking to the Alabama wild man behind him and the Tupelo flash up in front of him. And guess what's sitting up on one of them rounds? Yeah, he come along up beside of us, had that bubble gum machine on top of that thing, Mr. Gordon. Old Charlie pulled that bus over, and that big old Smoky Bear, he said, "Come on up here, boy, I don't get out." Charlie went up, got in the front seat of that police car and got his driver's license out and come blaring over that radio in that police car. Said, "Hey, how about you, Cotton Top?" Said, "How about that, Cotton Top? You got your ears on?" Said, "This is Alabama wild man." Old police just reached up there and took that little old microphone off, handed it over there to old Charlie, said, "I believe this is for you." Old Charlie's supposed to be a Christian. Said, "Ain't none of me." Old Smoky Bear said, "Oh, come on, Cotton Top." He said, "Why don't you tell the Alabama wild man you done got your foot caught in a bear trap up there?"
About 1972 is when I joined Wendy and the girls, and Wendy got his first big royalty check from Here Comes the Rattlesnake. He paid cash for that Bluebird bus, paid cash for it with his first royalty check, and we traveled in that for about the first year I was with him. But it just wasn't what he needed. And so I got him into a big bus, and we bought our first big bus in 1973. And boy, I mean, I won't ever forget the day I pulled that thing out of the factory with 47 miles on the odometer. Right after we bought that bus, the oil embargo took place, and diesel fuel prices went way up, and then they started rationing the fuel. So everybody started the CB thing. That was the thing, to have a CB radio. The truckers, the speed limit went to 55 to save fuel, and boy, I mean, they were really cracking down. Tinfoil to Cotton Top happened just about the way he told it. We had that new bus, so that thing would move on. It would go down the road smooth, speed limit 55, and I was running about 70, I think, or 75 when all of a sudden the blue lights came on. But the way he told it was exactly like it happened. The guy was real friendly, and we were sitting there in the car, and he had a CB radio in the police car. And all of a sudden, when that radio started blaring, "How about you, Cotton Top? How about you, Cotton Top?" He looked over there and he said, "Hey, bud, I believe that's for you." Just like that. And so that was a real true story. Everything Wendy says in there is just about like it really happened. And so I guess Cotton Top's here to stay till I'm gone. So it's been a good thing. Wendy Bagwell was more than just an employer. He was a good friend. I mean, he was a super guy always. Like I say, I've known him from since I was a kid, and I always looked up to him. But I cherish those days. I think about them often. It's been this past April was 46 years ago that I worked that first date with them in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and never forget it. Great people, great legacy, and good experience.
Welcome back to SGMP. Charlie Beatenbo there talking about Wendy and the funny things Wendy had done and just what a true friend he was. And what a true friend he was in the industry, just between what Charlie said and the fun things. You know, I go back to what Charlie said about him being a true friend. I go back to what Betty told us when we were talking to her off the air about Wendy, you know, giving away tapes to older folks and that sort of thing. And, you know, I go back to this. I think that's what partly made him successful. I think about his friendships that we heard from these people today that maybe we didn't get to. If we would have shared everything Jan and Betty Sue and Charlie had us said, Arthur, on the air, we'd be here for 3 hours. And it's tough this day and time to get people to listen for 30 minutes, let alone 3 hours. But there's a ton of information out there about Wendy and, you know, from his relationships with Elvis Presley. A lot of people didn't know Elvis loved Wendy. The Oak Ridge Boys were Wendy's favorite group. The Oak Ridge Boys. Yeah. One thing Wendy always said and one he always sang, and we'll close with this. I firmly promise you, if you get nothing else out of this Wendy Bagwell interview and information, maybe interview is the wrong word to say, documentary information, is go with a smile. Treat everybody with fun, love everybody, and have a good time. I firmly promise you I'll be back here next week on SGNP.
I firmly promise you that I'll meet you by that river, on the banks of that evergreen shore, where hearts will never break, and our lips will never quiver. For the friends that have gone on before, one by one, we'll see them cross the silent river. They're leaving every moment or two. So won't you firmly promise me that you'll meet me by the river, and I'll make you this promise too.
SGNP is excited you chose to listen today. If you'd kindly leave a remark and rating in the podcast remarks section, we surely would appreciate it. Please share with a friend or family member. Look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and our new website, SouthernGospelNewsPodcast.com. And remember the Kia Summer Nights concert series, all 100% free, coming to a town near you. For more information on the concert series or to advertise your products, services, concert event, or new project on SGNP and reach a 100% guaranteed number of people in your area, call Tim Newton at 770-874-3200 or email him today, tnewton@bgadgroup.com. Let us geo-target our ads for you, something radio nor magazine can do. Come see what all the smoke is about at Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill in the heart of the Smokies, Sevierville, Tennessee. Start off with T's loaded tater chips, some great sweet tea. Then have some of his famous fried chicken, a pulled or sliced pork plate, or the best barbecue ribs in the Smokies. And oh, did we mention homemade mac and cheese? And dessert lovers, it's worth the trip just for a piece of cake. Voted the best barbecue in the Smokies, Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill in Sevierville, Tennessee. And remember, gospel music fans, you never know who you'll see while at Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill. For more information, visit them 24/7 at TonyGore.com.
The life of being involved in media isn't normal. There's no such thing as 9 to 5. On top of that, I got a daughter graduating college, a son up in North Carolina working, and commercials to produce, and a wife. My wife likes to spend time with me, I think I heard. The bottom line is that everything I do requires energy, focus, and staying in the right mood. Thankfully, I was introduced to this company, Brick House Nutrition, and their amazing product, Dawn to Dusk. Dawn to Dusk is an extended release energy supplement, which lasts up to 10 hours. increases energy, improves moods, and stimulates your brain. I need that. Unlike coffee, which I don't drink, there's no crash. I drink tea. It's healthy and physician formulated and has no side effects whatsoever. All the ingredients and information are available for you right there at brickhouse.com. That's brickhouse.com. And right now, listeners to SGNP, Southern Gospel News Podcasters, get 10% off a 1-month supply, but only when you use the offer code SGNP at checkout. Go to brickhouse.com. Buy the product Dawn to Dusk. Type in SGNP at checkout and get 10% off. So if you're tired of wasting money on 7 cups of coffee a day and want something new, or just 1 cup of coffee at those fancy coffee places equals about 7 sometimes, you want something that'll give you a boost, enhance your mood, increase your focus, this is for you. Get 10% with the offer code SGMP at checkout when you go to brickhouse.com. That's brickhouse.com.